Well, hi everybody, and welcome to Drawing Basic Shapes and Using Colors. This tutorial is an introduction to Illustrator. I am going to start the tutorial from scratch so that if you've never opened Illustrator before, you will be completely covered in this tutorial. Some of you coming into the tutorial may already have some experience with Illustrator, and if that is the case, then feel free to skim through some of the things. If there is something that you see that you're like, oh, maybe I don't know too much about that, it's all good. You can go through and draw the simple shapes without watching everything, but I just want to make sure that coming in and starting the tutorial from scratch that we get everybody taken care of in that sense for foundational skill set in Illustrator. So what I am gonna have you do is go ahead and open your Adobe Illustrator application. So I'm gonna go down here and go ahead and launch that. And I have a project that I am going to open here in just a moment, but I'm going to have you start your project from scratch. So it's just taking a minute here and it's loading. So what you are going to see when Illustrator opens up is this dialog here. And you can see here are some past projects that I had been working on. And what we are going to do is start a new file. So go ahead and click New File. You are going to be introduced to this dialog box, which gives you tons and tons and tons of options. You can see that there's different types of preset documents for mobile, web, print, film, video, art, and illustration, and that is a lot to think about. So don't worry too much about these. What these do is they have preset settings over in the preset details box for you, which we don't need to worry about right now. So anyways, if you are clicked on recent, you might not actually have anything here if you've never used Illustrator before. So if you don't have anything in recent, let's just go ahead and go over to art and illustration. And we see here that we have some different options, a postcard, a poster. We're actually going to customize our own thing here. So you can go ahead and just leave it on postcard. That's fine for now. Over in the preset details, you can, name whatever custom details you put in here. So I'm going to go ahead and just name this, let's say tutorial. And let's go ahead and go down to our width and height. Now you're going to see that this is measuring by something called points, and this is something that people use in Illustrator. Today we're going to just work by inches to make it simple. So go ahead and click on your drop down box here, and let's go ahead and click inches, and you're going to see it converts what those points were into inches. And we are going to work with a board that is 16 inches by 16 inches, and we're just going to have one board. You can see here, you can choose how many artboards you have. And if you don't know what an artboard is, no worries. We're going to go over that in this tutorial. So just go ahead and have artboards, say 1. You can choose your orientation, which doesn't matter because we're doing a square. Bleed is something that is used for print publications for a safety zone for the printer. We're not going to use that today. Our color mode we want to have on RGB. Our screen PPI is rather low at 72. This is probably because this preset is for sharing things online. So we're going to go ahead and bring that to, let's do a medium today, I suppose. The high of 300 is for print publications. That's the lowest resolution you want to use for print. So you can you can change things there. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, we'll just stick with medium. Medium's fine. And then preview mode is fine in default. So you're going to go ahead and click create. And we have created our first project. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is save your project file somewhere. And when I do tutorials, I reinforce the saving all the time. Save your work. You don't want to lose stuff that you did. So we're going to go here to save as, and we'll go ahead and save it as tutorial. I'm going to save it on my computer. And you can choose to save it to Creative Cloud or on your computer. Of course, Adobe is all about saving it on the cloud, and you can certainly do that if you want. I'm going to go ahead and just save this to my computer. So the format is going to be this AI file. You can also export these files as SVGs or EPS, which means they're compatible with other raster-based software. But we'll just leave it at Adobe Illustrator and then go ahead and save that. When you save a project, if you have images that you bring into it, which we will later on, you can click include linked images or linked files here, which are files that you bring outside of Illustrator into the project. We'll go over that later, but for now, just hit OK. All right. Perfect. So let me go ahead and expand this to fill the window here. And I am going to go ahead and talk about this panel over here, I think, first. So what we are going to mostly be looking at today is the layers panel, which shows you your layers that you have going on. We're going to talk more about layers later on and adjusting those. You have a properties panel, which is kind of a, it's a quick way to make adjustments on your objects, but we don't have any objects yet, so we're going to come back to that. And then you have a bunch of other tools down here. Any of these windows you can just pull and drag off and drag anywhere that you want onto the screen. If you want to pop that back in, you can just hover over the top here and pop it back in. You can make this disappear by going like that, and you can bring the windows back up just by clicking here. You can rearrange things in this window if you want. So anyways, all of these different panels do wonderful things for you in the application. It is really intimidating at first, but hopefully this will give you a good basis and get you through everything. So then over here, we have our tools. I can just take that off and drag it if I want, and I think I will do that for this tutorial. So these are all the tools that you can use in Illustrator. Again, that's pretty intimidating, but don't worry, we're only going to be using a few basic tools in this first tutorial. So yeah, you can take this off and drag it around like I said. You can toggle this arrow here to make it skinny or a little bit more thick. And then I can bank that back over to the side if I want by just dragging it and dropping it on that blue line that, that appears as I hover. So I want you to keep this project open, but I am going to open my project that I have made previous. And we'll just ignore that for right now. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do our first artboard here. In this, we're gonna go over the selection tools, the layers and properties panel, which I had mentioned, the swatch panel, fill and stroke, drawing basic shapes. So the first thing that we are going to do in Illustrator is draw some basic shapes. So let me go ahead and just take this tool panel off, and I'm going to just drag it right here so it's a little easier to see. I am also going to go ahead and make my mouse a little larger so that it is easier for you all to see. Let me see if I can remember where I changed that. Okay, so now my mouse is nice and big. Hopefully that'll make it a little easier for you all to see what I'm doing. It does make me feel like I have too big of a hand or something, but that's okay. So with all these tools, as you hover over them, and you can shut this off, by the way, if you want. That's going to be in your software preferences for the application. But if you hover over them, it's going to tell you what the tool does, and it's got a nice little animation showing you what is going on. And anytime you see these tools, and there's a little arrow, which is the case most of the time, and there's a little arrow in the corner. If you click down, so let's go to the rectangle tool. If you click down on it, you're going to see that you get other tools here that pop up. And if you double click on it, now let's see, maybe I have to make a rectangle first before we get another dialog box. We'll do that again in here in just a moment. Anyways, so clicking down and then dragging, you can get a different tool that way. And we are going to go ahead and just start out with the rectangle tool today. So that's what we're going to do. So go ahead and select your rectangle tool. I'll leave that there just so it's a little easier to see. And what I want you to do is come over to the right side and click on your layers panel. Now you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff here, and we'll talk more about this later. But basically all of the assets on a board that you have in a piece of artwork are going to be over here in the layer panel. I only have one layer right now. I have everything on the same layer. We'll organize that later on. But when we make a rectangle here, you're going to see it appear as an object over in this panel. So let's go ahead and do that. So you're just going to click down with your mouse and drag. And you have a triangle. And by default, Illustrator's default is that it's going to be a white fill with a black stroke. So we'll talk more about that here shortly. So now that you have this, you still have your rectangle tool selected, but let's say that you do not want to have, you want to start kind of changing the appearance of this. What you're going to do is you're going to go over to your selection tool. Now you have two different selection tools. You have the selection tool that's black, and then you have what's called a direct selection tool. And they are the same. They select things, but they select things in different ways. And we are going to talk more about that a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and take the selection tool. And if I click off to the side, off of the box, you're going to see that the highlighting goes away. And then if I click on it, you're going to see that it's selected. And you can see here that the rectangle appeared over in our layers panel. And when I take the selection tool and click on it, you're going to see that it highlights right here. So we know that this is the one that's selected. And then if we click down, we can drag it around. Now, it has a white fill, which we can actually see here. Right here is our fill and stroke panel. And so you can see what the colors are of this art when we have our, have it selected. The other place that you're going to find information about this rectangle is in the properties panel. And I'm actually going to take my properties panel and I'm going to drag it up because I use my properties panel probably the most. It's kind of a quick way to get to fill, stroke, opacity, and you've got some quick tools that you can use here as well. So let's say I want to go ahead and change that fill. Well, we have some default colors to use, and this is what we're going to use for the very beginning. We'll get more into color here in the coming videos. So I'm going to just pick a yellow. And then let's say I want to change this stroke to, let's just choose a purple. And then I want to make the stroke a little bit larger, maybe to 5 points. There we go. So we've changed the appearance of the rectangle. Now, the really important thing to know about creating shapes is it seems very limited at first, like, squares and rectangles are great, but I need to do something a little bit more complex. So let me go ahead and start showing you a few tricks with the shape creation. So this time we are going to drag from the upper right and use the shift key. So when I made this before, if I just drag with my mouse and this doesn't keep proportion at all, but let's say I want a perfect square. That's what I need to have. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command Z to undo the rectangle I just created. Command Z, by the way, is probably going to be your best friend. It's just simply undo, and that's Control Z if you're on a PC, okay? Command Control. All right, so Command Z, and this time I'm going to hold my Shift key down, and I'm going to go ahead and drag. So let's hold Shift key, and you'll see that when you use Shift, it keeps proportion on all 4 sides, giving me a perfect square. Very useful, right? Now, sometimes, depending on what you're doing, you want to create a shape from the center, and you can do that also. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to hold down Shift and, is it Option? Yes. We're going to hold down Shift and Option, and you're going to see this little box pop up around your cursor symbol here. And we're going to click and drag, and you're going to see that it creates the perfect square from the center, which is very, very useful, depending on what kind of artwork or design work you are drawing. Okay? All right, very cool. So let me just check my list here. Yep, we've got the shape commands taken care of. So let's go ahead and play around with manipulating these shapes further. So we know about the selection tool here, the dark one, the black one, and that selects a whole shape. And if we go over to our layers panel, you're going to see these rectangles are popped up. You can select things, by the way, from this panel as well, which is also useful. So as I click on those, you can see that they get selected. So with this rectangle, what I want to do is start doing some manipulations. And the first thing you might notice are these little circles in the corners, and you might wonder what those are. Well, if you click on them and drag them in, you're gonna see that it rounds the corners of whatever it is that's selected. So I'm going to go ahead and round them, let's say just a little bit, maybe like so. Now, let's say you have a shape where you want to have the corners rounded, but you want to have the corners on the top rounded a little bit more. That is where the direct selection tool comes in. So you can see that I've selected this one, and now I can just drag that one in. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command or Control Z to undo that. What I want to do is select the top two. So I'm going to Shift, Select, and I am going to, well, that didn't quite work, did it? Okay, those should be the only ones selected. There we go. A little bit tricky in the beginning with Illustrator because you do have to make sure you're clicked on things correctly. And before I forget, one thing that I want to tell you that's really helpful in working in Illustrator, probably critical to navigating all the different artboards and everything, is your command or control plus and minus key, okay? So why don't you let's just stop and do this really quick. If you hit command or control minus sign, you're gonna see that you can back out of your project pretty far. And if you hit command or control plus, it's gonna zoom you in. And if you have something selected, it's gonna zoom you right into whatever is selected, okay? All right, so now we have rounded some corners. That is all good fun. Now, let's say I would like to do some adjustments on the shape that make it maybe not so perfectly square, let's say on this one. So the direct selection tool allows you to select these anchors individually. Let me just zoom in a little. You see every single path that is created in Illustrator has these anchor points. And that's what basically creates your shape. And so we can manipulate the anchor points individually. So if you click down on that and you drag it, you can move the corner of this shape around. And you can see that there are these visual guides that kind of pop up, and these can be really useful depending on what it is that you're trying to do. See how I hover over this and it shows me when I have this anchor point lined up with this other shape over here, for example. Looks like my screen's glitching out a little bit. So you can take those and individually drag them however you like, which is kind of nice. So maybe I'm going to drag this over here a little bit, and then if I click on this one, let's say I want to round this in. You see when I round this point in a little bit, it creates two anchor points because it has to, because it can't create that curve without those anchor points. Okay, so now I have a very kind of original organic looking shape as opposed to a geometric shape. A lot of people use shapes to really draw most of their stuff in Illustrator. You know, you can use the pattern tool and do free drawing as well, but this is actually a very useful way to draw shapes. All right, so I'm going to speed up just a little bit here. And we are going to go ahead and draw a few more shapes really quick, okay? We're going to focus on the ellipse tool and the star tool. So with the ellipse tool, you're going to go ahead and, you know, it makes circles or ovals, whatever it is that you're trying to do. You can use your drag and hold with the shift key. So if we drag and hold with shift, I've got a perfect circle. I can also hold down command or control and shift to create, nope, I've got it wrong, I'm sorry. It's option and shift to create a circle from the center there, okay? And then we can use our direct selection tool to manipulate these further. So I can take this and I can bring the shape over here. And then you're also going to see on the circles we have what are called handles. And these can be manipulated. We won't get into them too much right here, but you can take those and move those around. If you click, you can see there's two handles for every curve. If you hold shift down and drag it, or maybe it's option. Oh yeah, it's option. Then you can just move one side of the handle. All right, and I'll have a guide for all these little quick keys. Okay, so the next one that's really important that I want to show you is the star tool. And so the star tool is way more than just a star tool. So let's go ahead and just click and drag our first star. So this is what it looks like. Here's a star. If I hold shift down, it'll keep my star upright. Now what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you drag the star tool, but keep your mouse clicked down, and then go to your arrow key and arrow up and down. Make sure you still have your mouse or trackpad clicked down. You can go down to a triangle, and you can go up to a pretty significant starburst. Now, go ahead and release that one. Let's go ahead and make another star. You're gonna see it kept the amount of points that I told it to have. Keep your mouse or trackpad clicked down. You're going to hold down your Option key, and you're gonna see that it creates a different shape, and it significantly reduces the amount of those points. If you hold down Command or Control, you can control how long the peaks are coming out of the star tool. And if you hold, let's see, yeah, it's just Option and Command. This one's got a lot of points on it, so it's doing some really intense stuff. But let's, let me just come over here and reduce. Let's go back to a regular star. There we go. So this is me holding the Command or Control key down. You can see that you can really make your star manipulated in a very specific way, which is very useful. All right, so that is drawing basic shapes. You can see all of our shapes have shown up over here in our layers panel. They're all in layer 1, which is fine for now. And we've got all these wonderful different shapes going on. So we're gonna go ahead and stop here. This is quite a lot for the first introduction. Let's go ahead and go to File and Save, or Command or Control S. We're gonna save it, and depending on what it is that you're up to and how you're managing time, you know, this is a time to maybe stop and shut down Illustrator, or if you wanna keep going, obviously just save your project, and I will meet you in the next video. All right, perfect. Okay, that's it. Bye.